This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Jody Kateva. I'm the Scholarship Administrator here at Legacy Foundation. And thank you for joining us for our public Zoom, where we're going to talk about the Lilly Endowment Scholarship Program, and we're going to go through the application. As we mentioned, this is going to be recorded for you. So again, my contact information, Jody Kateva. I'm with Legacy. I've been here almost 8 years. So this is my phone number, my email. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. So just before we get started, I have a couple housekeeping rules. Because we are going to be recording it, I ask that you please turn your video and your microphones off. I'm going to turn mine off as well. It helps with our recording quality. This recording, as well as all of the slides that we share, are going to be on our website tomorrow for you to review. And if you have any questions or comments, you can use the chat function. I have Miranda with us from Legacy. She's going to be assisting me with this. So if you have anything that you want to ask, you can type that in the chat, and we'll stop periodically so that I can answer those questions. I will say, when we're talking about questions, please, if you have general questions, we love to hear them. If you have specific questions, so maybe about your personal finances or your specific family, things like that, I'd rather talk about that offline. So again, you've got my email, you've got the phone number for Legacy. I welcome you to call and reach out if you've got any in-depth questions, and I can certainly assist you with any of those. So I'm going to turn my camera off, and then we are going to get going. So to begin, I just wanted to tell you really quickly about Legacy Foundation in case you are unaware or this is the first time that you've heard of us. So we are the community foundation that serves Lake County, Indiana. And so we have a number of things that we do in Northwest Indiana, in particular for Lake County. So again, the first thing, we offer scholarships to Lake County students. We have the Lilly Endowment Scholarship, and then we have more scholarships that will open later on in the year. We also serve as a mentor and a resource center for local nonprofits. We help them to do what they need to do to effectively provide services for the community. We do that through resource events, teaching opportunities for them. We also provide grants to them. We work with local leaders to look at local problems and brainstorm to see what we can do in partnership to enhance the quality of life for folks in Lake County. And then finally, we work with donors on how to manage their charitable assets. So individuals that want to give back financially to organizations in Lake County will come to us, and we help direct them the best way that we can so that they can make their money do good for the community and for Lake County in general. So as I had mentioned, we have two main scholarship cycles. The first is the Lilly application, the Lilly Scholarship, which is what we're here today to talk about. The deadline to apply for that is September 15th. We also have a universal application that opens November 1, and the current deadline for that is February 1st. We might be extending that, but we're not quite sure yet, but definitely check us out November 1st. What's great about the universal application is that students fill out one application and they can be eligible for over 40 different scholarships. So that opens November 1st. So you can mark that on your calendars. So I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty about the Lilly, but just there are very specific criteria that are required to apply for this scholarship. So I want to cover those right off the bat. So if you don't meet all of these, then unfortunately you would not be eligible for this scholarship. And I would certainly encourage you then to come back and look at our scholarships that we offer in November, because you will likely be eligible for several, if not more, of those. So for the 2024 criteria for the Lilly, you have to be a graduating senior from an accredited high school in Lake County, Indiana. This means that unfortunately for the Lilly Endowment, we are not able to accept students that are homeschooled or students that are doing online learning through an organization that is not located in Lake County, Indiana. If you've got questions about that and you want to dig a little deeper with me, again, please reach out and we can work through that. You also have to be a resident of Lake County, Indiana. You have to plan to attend full-time studies in the fall of 2024 at an accredited Indiana college or university. You have to have an unweighted GPA of 3.25. It's important that this is unweighted. So if you are unsure what your unweighted GPA is, you should talk to your guidance counselor. A lot of transcripts will show you your unweighted GPA, but not all. So if you have a question about that, I'm sure your guidance counselors can assist. And we look at those grades through your junior year. So what you're doing right now in your current senior year is not taken into account. So you have to both reside in Lake County and attend school in Lake County. So both of those are required. And then finally, you have to fall below a certain income threshold. And so this is based on your family's adjusted gross income. This is located on your family's taxes. We're looking at the taxes that your family filed for 2022. And so what you'll do is you'll look at the number of people reported in your household, and you need to make sure that your family makes either that amount of money or less. So say it's you, your mom, your father, and you have one sibling. So there's 4 people. If your family's AGI on your taxes is over 107,175, then unfortunately you would not be eligible for this scholarship. If your AGI was below, then you would be eligible. So again, you'll probably have to put a guardian or your family in on this discussion to make sure that you meet those eligibility requirements. So now that we cover that, if you know that you aren't eligible, that you don't meet these requirements, feel free to hop off. And we will be doing another one of these closer to the fall where I'll talk about the universal application. This is the only scholarship that we have that has that very specific income requirement in order to apply. So I'm going to move on to my next slide. Do we have any questions right now, Miranda?
Not at the moment.
Okay, perfect. So the Lilly Endowment Community Scholarship Program, I call it the Lilly. So what is it? So this was established in 1999. The goal was to help raise the level of education for students in Indiana. And this is a program that is actually run through the Lilly Endowment. Every single county in Indiana has their own Lilly scholarship. So each year, every community foundation has their own Lilly process, their own application, and their own Lilly scholars. So when you participate in this, if you were to receive this scholarship, you're not just receiving this through Lake County, but you're part of a larger group of scholars in Indiana that has won this scholarship. And so through this program, this will be the 27th, I believe. Legacy has been able to award over 200 full tuition scholarships to students in Lake County. So what is the Lilly? What is the award? We award 6 students from Lake County, and the scholarship covers 4 years of tuition, full tuition, at any accredited 4-year public or private college in Indiana. And students also receive $900 a year for books. So depending on where you decide to want to go to school, say you want to go to Rose-Hulman or you're thinking Notre Dame, this scholarship can be worth over $200,000 for you. But I also want to caution people, this is not a full ride scholarship, meaning room and board is not covered through the Lilly. This is my 8th year doing this. I would say that most of the students that I work with that receive this scholarship are able to get other scholarship awards through the school that cover, if not all, most of their other expenses. But just to clarify, the Lilly itself, the Lilly scholarship just on its own is not going to cover those room and board. Now, there are certain institutions that are much more likely to work with you if you get the Lilly scholarship. For example, Notre Dame, Wabash, Rose-Hulman, those schools tend to be very generous in other scholarships for Lilly students. It's not guaranteed, but from my experience, the students that choose to go to those schools generally have that covered. So I just want to make sure everyone kind of understands that, because I do hear that all the time. It's a full ride scholarship, but it is actually not considered a full ride. So eligibility criteria, we talked about this a little bit before. Resident of Lake County, must attend school in Lake County, 3.25 GPA unweighted. You have to meet the financial eligibility requirements. Citizenship is not required to apply. And we do not look at your ACT or SAT scores. We don't even ask you for them. So that's a little bit about the eligibility. So what we're looking for, we're looking at academics, demonstrated leadership skills, service to others if you've given back to your community. We look at character through essays and recommendations. We look at your essays, and then there is an interview component for the finalists. So the process and the timeline. The Lilly Endowment is very different from all the other scholarships that we administer here through Legacy, because the schools are heavily involved in the process. So on the 15th of September, all the students submit their applications through our website. I actually send each school all of their applications. So if you go to X school, I'll look. If X school has 25 applications, I send those guidance counselors all 25 of those, and then they actually will in turn select one student to move on to be that school's finalist. So it's a 2-tiered process. So on October 5th, I will hear back from the school who they are selecting to be their nominee, their finalist, and then I will let you know if you are selected as a finalist. If you are selected as a finalist, then you need to turn in financial verification documents to me. So for those 25 students, there's 25 schools in Lake County. Each one of those schools will have a finalist. I will reach out to you, and you will need to provide tax backup documentation to verify that you met the financial eligibility requirement that you had signed off on in the eligibility. If your family does not file taxes, then I can work with you to see what alternate forms of documentation you have to fulfill that requirement. On October 19th, finalists are going to be notified if they will move on to the interview. So what happens is those schools send me their nominee, and then we have a review panel of 5 or 6 individuals outside of Legacy Foundation that review applications and score them. And the top 16 to 18 scores are then brought in for an interview. And those interviews will take place October 26th and 27th. They're on a Thursday or a Friday. And what will happen is if you're selected as a finalist, and then in turn, if you're selected to be interviewed, I will reach out to you on October 19th and let you know when your interview day and time is. And those are in person at Legacy Foundation And when we get closer to that time, if it happens to be you and transportation is an issue, you can always reach out to Legacy, and between your guidance counselor and myself, we can help navigate that for you. So we have the interviews. Our external review committee will do the panel interview. They're about 30-minute interviews, and then they will determine who the 6 recipients are. And all of the information then that we get, so all the scoring from our individuals, all of that gets sent back to the Lilly Endowment, because they are the ones that actually administer the scholarship payments. So they review all of our paperwork to make sure that it meets their needs. And so then we can go on and award them usually in mid-December. So it takes them about a month and a half to review all the work from all the community foundations. I believe there's 91 community foundations. So this is a huge process in totality beyond just Lake County. So through this process, again, we'll have the 6 Lilly Scholarship Awards that we do. And then we also have 6 additional scholarships that we offer. So of your 25, 1 from each school, 6 are going to get the Lilly, and then another 6 students will get some other type of award. So 12 students will walk away with some type of award through this process. Any questions about any of that, Miranda?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So now we're going to go a little bit into just how you apply, where you find it on the website. So again, you would apply online. You can go to our general website, click under scholarships, and the Lilly Endowment Scholarship has its own button. You can click there. This is the home screen that you're going to see. So you will need to create a new account. There's a forgot button. So if you password and you need to get back in there, you can use your password. Do not use a high school issued email account. We are not always able to email those. And so I want to make sure that I can get in touch with you. We do most of our communication through email. So it's very important to check your account regularly. One tip that I have for all the students I work with that are seniors is to create a new Gmail or, whatever mail that you use. Maybe create one just for colleges. So that you are only using that when you're applying for colleges, applying for scholarships. And that way, if you don't use that email address for anything else, you won't get much junk mail. And so you can know that this is your really important one that you're not going to use for shopping or anything else. So and I do see that. People might say, Charles is going to college at gmail.com. I've seen stuff like that. For students that have pulled that email account just for those specific purposes. So I thought that was a really great idea. So once you're in there, you're going to be creating a profile. Just remember that everything that you put in this profile, this is how all of your information is going to get pulled. So it's the little things, make sure that you're spelling things correctly, make sure that you're capitalizing things. And then this is just also a note, this application should not be completed by parents. This is your student who's applying for this scholarship, not the parents. I am going to be interacting with students. If students have questions, you're welcome to ask me. The only caveat with that, I think, is the financial component. I know that can get fairly complicated. So if a parent wants to reach out to me where we're navigating what documentation to send, I'm fine with that. But other than that, any questions about general application and applying and things like that really need to come from the student. And then once you're in the profile, on the top right-hand corner, there is an Edit My Profile button. So if you feel, if you look and something's changed or say your phone number's changed, or your address has changed, you can certainly go in and edit that. I do a lot of contact through cell phone numbers as well, so it will ask you for your cell phone number. So we send out bulk reminders and things like that through your cell phone as well. So once you're on the main screen, after you put all of your information, it's going to talk about the Lilly Endowment Scholarship, and you're going to start your eligibility quiz. And this is what the eligibility quiz is going to look like. Again, it's all those things that I hit on before: residency, your high school GPA. It's going to ask you those financial requirements. It's going to outline that. So read through that. Again, you may need to talk with your parents or your guardian to make sure that you have all that correct information. And then the bottom, I want you to understand that it is a two-tiered scholarship process and that your school is going to be involved. So if you can select yes to all of those, then you will move ahead and be able to be eligible. And so I found this flow chart through a FAFSA website that I was, or a webinar that I was listening to, and I thought it was really great. So we mirror our financial requirements on the FAFSA and what they ask for. So I hope all of you know what the FAFSA is. It's the free application for financial aid. It will not open this year until December, but it is critical that you do that. So aside from this scholarship, because you don't need the FAFSA for this scholarship, but just in general, I would strongly encourage everyone to fill out the FAFSA. That is how you're going to get all of your Pell Grants, student loans, all of that financial assistance that you need for college is all through the FAFSA. So if you have specific questions about your financial situation with your parents, this is a good flow chart to use. So if your parents are married, then you would provide information about both parents. So even if if the two parents file taxes separately, you would use the joint AGI for both of them. If your parents aren't married, you go to the next question. So do they live together? So say they're not married, but they are domestic partners and they live together. So yes, again, you would use information for both parents. So say your parents do not live together. Okay, so then we ask, did one parent provide more financial support than the other over the past 12 months? So if one parent did provide more financial support, then that's the parent that you use to determine the AGI. If it's equal, so if the parents really provided the exact amount of financial support, then you select the parent that has the greater income or assets. And if the parent that you've identified is married, you are required to utilize that information for the step parent. If they're not remarried, then you would provide the information just for this parent. What if you're emancipated, or what if you're a ward of the state? Then you wouldn't look at any guardian assets. You would just be looking at your own income. So you probably may not have income, but if you do, then you would certainly utilize that income. And then if you've got specific questions about your situation, I'm more than happy to chat offline with you about any of that. So once you've passed the eligibility quiz, you will be taken to the apply page. And so you're going to click the apply button, and it takes you to the application. So when you first get to the application, all the sections might be wide open. So it looks really, really long, but I don't want you to get discouraged. We really tried to make this an easy application to fill out. So if you take the time beforehand, which I recommend every student do, this is not going to be the only place that you have to write all this information, right? You're going to be applying for colleges, you're going to apply for other scholarships, have a centrally located file that talks about all of the activities that you've done, when you did them, all of your employment. I mean, I think it's a good idea to have all of this just written down in a Word document or an Excel sheet so that you have it. I've met students that are able, except for the essay, they've been able to fill this out in a couple hours. So even though it looks really long and daunting, I promise if you kind of go through it step by step, it's not that hard. And if you want, on the top right-hand side, it does say question list. So if you wanted to download an entire copy of the application, it's pretty long. You can do that. If you wanted to, make notes or things like that, you can do that as well. But you can expand and close each section as you go. And then on the bottom, you'll see abandon request. So if you get into this application and you realize it's not for you, you don't want to apply, please abandon it. Otherwise, I will continue to send you reminder emails for the next 16 days. And then at the bottom, you can save your application. And then obviously there's the submit button. The application does auto save as you go, but that's just an extra kind of thing that they have there for you. I think we might have another question. I saw the number change. Miranda?
Yes, we do have two questions.
Okay.
The first one is around unweighted GPA. How would a student go about finding their unweighted GPA?
Your guidance counselor should be able to provide that for you, if it's not already located on your transcript.
Wonderful. And then the second question is going back to the parents
Mhm.
portion. What if the parents are married, but they live separate in two different households?
If they're still married, then you would count both of them. You would count the income from both, even if they file separately.
Perfect. Thank
Now,
you.
yeah, I mean, to clarify that, and this, this person can certainly reach out to me I don't want to get too in the weeds. If they're married but separated, then you would kind of follow that flow chart as being separated. If it's just that I have a career somewhere and someone else has a career in another place, and so we're together and paying bills together, but we just file separately, then you would still be considered married. And so you would count both, if that makes sense. But again, reach out to me for any unique situations, and we can talk them through. Okay. So the student view, so this is student information. So we're gonna have you come up with a project name, which would just be your initials and then the last 4 digits of your phone number. There's a drop down for high school. Those include all of the high schools in Louisiana, in Lake County. Date of birth, and then it will ask some identifying questions. Those aren't made available to the reviewers, but part of what we do on our end is we want to make sure that we're reaching all of the students in Lake County. And so it's good for us for tracking purposes to have the answers to these questions, but they wouldn't impact you in the review process. Family information. So we're asking who you live with, the name of your parent or guardian, what their status is, whether they're divorced, married, separated, other, how long you've lived in Lake County, number of siblings, the ages of those siblings. These are all just ways for the reviewers to get to know you. As I mentioned, we have normally between 5 and 6 reviewers. I have 5 solidified so far. 3 of them are past Lilly Scholar recipients, and the other 2 are community members. So the three that are past Lilly Scholars, they've been in your shoes. They've been through the entire process that you're about to go through, which I think is really great. And this is how they've decided to give back. So student view financial information. So we are going to ask for your family's AGI as reported on their taxes. This shouldn't be 0. So even if your parents aren't working or your guardian isn't working, this should include child support, state or federal aid that they get, disability or Social Security. So generally, this should not be zero because there's some income coming in to the family, even if it's not taxable income. And then again, number in household, this should not be zero. So your guardian or whoever knows about taxes should be able to help you with this. And then again, if you've got further questions, feel free to reach out to me and I can troubleshoot with you. If your tax returns are not available, so if your family didn't file a tax return, you can explain why. And then again, I'll work with you to figure out what kind of documentation you could provide to us for that verification. And then lastly, the financial statement. So I would tell you to, this is your opportunity to kind of tell us a little bit more about your family and the finances and what's going on. So it could be that there was a really big change in job status. Maybe somebody was making one amount of money and then they lost their job. This is where you would explain that to us. Or if there's other relatives that are living in the home that, that money has to pay for. If there's medical bills, anything like that, this is the place that you can tell us about it. And then also the reviewers want to know, how are you going to pay for college? What is your plan? Say you don't get this scholarship. How are you going to make it work? So the reviewers definitely look at that information. So please make sure you, fill that in.
Jody, we did have one question. Could you please explain what AGI is?
Sure. Adjusted gross income. So if you file your taxes, when you do your tax documentation paperwork, there's a line in the form that says AGI. And so you should be able to ask your guardian or your parent or whoever files taxes for your family. They should be able to find that line. If not, they can reach out to me and I can help help let them know where they can find that on their tax forms.
Perfect. And then could you please confirm one more time, total income from 2022 or 2023 taxes?
It's 2022. Those are the taxes that your family would have filed in April of this year. So we do look back retrospectively to the last full year, since at this point, we don't know exactly what your income is going to be for 2023 yet.
Thank you.
No problem. So then the next part of the application is the extracurricular activity table. And so this is where you're going to list all of the activities that you've been involved in. So whether it's music, drama, sports, NHS, academic teams, anything like that. If you are in travel ball or participating in athletics that are not through your school, this is still where you would put them. So these are the extracurriculars that you do. And then we are asking for, just to kind of save space, we really only want you to put activities that you've participated in for a minimum of 2 semesters or 2 seasons. So if you, say we're on the bowling team for 1 season freshman year, and then you didn't do it again, you wouldn't need to put that on this table. And so in this, we want you to name the activity. I would explain that if it's an activity that we don't know what it means, so say it's an acronym, explain a little bit about what that might be so that we know. The number of years that you were involved, and it can include your senior year. So even if it's something that hasn't started yet, but you know that you will be involved, you can certainly include that. We want the number of months that you've played or participated per academic year, and then an approximate hours per week. And I know that a lot of this fluctuates, but if you can give us a rough guess, that helps us understand. And then finally, if there's any leadership roles or if you've gotten any special recognition in any of these, we would want you to put it there. And because it is a table and there's not a lot of space to write, there is an essay box at the bottom. It's completely optional, but if you wanted to highlight or elaborate anything that you had talked about above, you could do so here. And then this is similar to the extracurricular. We have the community, religious, civic activities. So this is really volunteerism. So whether you're committed to your church or if there's a community service group that you work with or a civic engagement group that you do things for outside of school, this is where you would put those activities. We ask that you please not put activities related to school service clubs. So, for example, I know that you need required hours for NHS. You're already putting that in the above column or the above table for extracurriculars. So you wouldn't put that here. So this is work that you have done in addition to anything that is required of you by those other groups. And again, we really only want activities that you have participated in for a minimum of 4 weeks. So if you participated in a one-day walkathon or something of that nature, you would not need to put this on this table. And it doesn't show it on the screen, but again, below this, there is also another essay box if you wanted to elaborate on anything that you've written.
Jody, we received a number of questions regarding the last 2 slides. If we could take a
Sure.
pause really quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a few questions on the number of activities they're allowed to put. Is 5 the maximum?
Yes. So we would want you to put what is most important to you.
Perfect. Another question regarding a little bit more specifics of what to include. Would the Upward Bound program count as an extracurricular activity?
Yes.
And then if an individual was just nominated and included in NHS this year, would they still be able to put that down?
Yes, because you can include your senior year. So if it's something that you're going to be in this year, you can absolutely include it.
Okay, perfect. Then 2 more questions. What happens if an individual was not involved in any extracurricular activities during those specific years?
And that's okay. You can simply leave it blank.
And then final question. I think this is referring to the piece that you said, if you were required to volunteer for an NHS or a Key Club program, even if the volunteer activities were outside of school, but it was for school. What if you volunteered more than the required number of hours for those programs? Could you include that overage?
You absolutely could. You absolutely could. So, I mean, I think what we're just trying to parcel out for the reviewers is if you're doing your 40 hours and that's it, then you would keep it in, the one section with extracurriculars. But if you say started volunteering at the food bank and were really committed to that cause and then decided to do that long term as a volunteer commitment, then that moves it away from just the NHS requirement into, a true service activity. And so then you would absolutely put that under that the volunteer table. And again, we have that essay box. Really the reviewers just want to get to know you. And so these are all just ways to try and streamline the process for them because they're reviewing so many students. But anytime there's an essay box, feel free to put anything that you want that you feel helps explain you, your situation, your activities, what you're doing, etc.
Perfect. And then we did get one more specific question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
The Hobie, Indiana program, would that be considered extracurricular?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Any kind of conference or thing, something like that you've done, definitely put it in there. And I don't want students to get too bogged up. Make sure that it's on here, I guess. So if you're not sure where to put it, no one is going to discount the application because it's in the wrong box, so to speak. But we're just trying to streamline it for the reviewers. And then obviously, if you have big questions about where to put things, you can reach out to me because I know some of those things, it's kind of hard. Hobie is something that you're doing outside of school, but it's because of school. So I don't think there's a right and or wrong answer. But when you are involved with something like that, it's a leadership, program, we absolutely want the reviewers to know about that. So make sure you're putting it in there. Anything else?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and then finally, student employment history. So we do allow you to upload a resume, but this is only if you have one. So I don't want anyone to leave here thinking that they now need to create a resume. The reviewers don't care whether if you want to put it into the application and just type it out because you don't have a resume, that is perfectly acceptable. If you have a resume already done, it's certainly acceptable to upload it. You don't need to do both. But I highlight this because I've seen students that go out of their way to do both. And, if you're not required to do that, and they're not scored any differently, depending on how you get that information to us. My only note would be, if you're going to use a resume that you already have, they traditionally don't include hours per week. And so we would want to make sure that you include that information. So whether you want to do that in the portion that you type in, or whether you want to update the resume before you upload it, is up to you. But we do want to make sure that we have that information, because we really try and look holistically at students. And so from a review perspective, students can be volunteers, they can be working, they can be involved in lots of different activities, either academic or sports wise. And so we're really looking at the student holistically. We just want to know, how do you occupy your time? What keeps you busy? What are your passions? What makes you you? What drives you? And so as long as we're able to get all that information, the more that you can put in, the better for the reviewers. So we also require 3 essays that you have to complete. The system that we have, it looks at characters, which is a little bit tricky. So really about 250 to 400 words, which I know that's a really big number. But just to kind of give people a general sense of what we're looking at, it's about 400 words. And I do always recommend that you type these into a Word doc or whatever you utilize for school, so that you have them, and then you can cut and paste them into the application. So if something happens, you wouldn't lose those. So the first is, we talk about the purpose of the Lilly Scholarship is really to support Indiana. We want the Lilly Scholars to engage with each other, with businesses, governments, education, nonprofits, civic leaders. The goal is to find the best and the brightest students and keep them in Indiana. We want you to stay in Indiana, get rooted in Indiana, find jobs in Indiana. The whole goal is to stay here in Indiana. So we do want to know, how might these goals contribute to improving the quality of life here? So what are your goals, and how are they going to make, Northwest Indiana or Indiana in general a better place? Essay 2 is to write a short autobiography about yourself. And so this is a way for you to just share with us about who you are. So, this can be anything that you want. So talk about your family, your hobbies, what do you do in your spare time? What inspires you? And then you can elaborate on any of the things that you didn't get to address in your application. Say you don't have a formal volunteer relationship with an organization, but you mow your elderly neighbor's lawn. Throw that in there. This is the way for us to get to know you. And then finally, essay 3, discuss an accomplishment, event, challenge, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. So those are the 3 essays that are required. Any questions, Miranda?
No, someone was just asking for your contact information.
Oh, cool. Okay. So this is very important. So because your school is picking one student to move on, we want you to put down the names of 2 people from your high school that know you the best and can really sing your praises. So you don't need to do anything further with this. You do not need to get letters of recommendation. You do not need to do anything with these teachers. You could certainly let them know, hey, I put you down. But the purpose of this is that the school guidance department, when they're figuring out, they all have their own very rigorous process of who, how they determine their person. If they don't know you, then these are the people they're going to reach out to, and they're going to say, hey, Joe put your name down. Let's talk about Joe. So that's what this is for. So you don't have to get letters from them or anything else. Every year I get teachers mailing me recommendation letters for students, and we can't utilize those. It's not part of the application. So this is just for you to think about who are 2 people that can talk great things about you, sing your praises to the guidance department when they're navigating the nominee process. And then finally, at the very bottom, there's the application packet button. So if you want to download this as a PDF, you can click that button and you can print it, read through everything that you wrote. I think this is a wonderful idea. I think that sometimes looking at all these screens, and maybe because I'm old, I know you all are much younger than me, and so you're accustomed to looking at pages and pages of stuff online. But for me, I always think it's nice to just download the entire thing as a PDF and read through it, either PDF form on your computer, or if you can print it somewhere, and really just kind of go through and make sure that you've adequately talked about all the things that you want to talk about. And then I'm going to go back just for 1 second, even though I'm going to repeat myself. So this is due. This is an old screenshot, but it is due by 9/15 at 5 p.m. So September 15th, 5 p.m. It is an online system, which means I don't have control over whether that closes or not. So if you try and submit and it's past 5 o'clock, the system will not let you. So I'm now just going to kind of talk about scholarship tips in general. So if you have questions about the actual scholarship, shoot those out to Miranda while you can, because we're wrapping up. So these are just tips in general. So this is not just for this scholarship, but any scholarship. This is also for your college applications. So brag about yourself. This is the time to think about and talk about all of the great things that you do. And I know that this seems kind of self-explanatory, but I cannot tell you how many times I'm sitting down with a student in an interview and stuff comes up in the interview that was never on the application. And we're wowed and amazed that they did these things and that they didn't write them down. So again, that kind of takes me into the second one. Take a minute, even if it's a conversation with your friends, your guidance counselor, a trusted mentor, a parent, a guardian, whomever, sit down and just, even if it's on paper, and just write down, like, what have I done the last 4 years? Really think thoroughly about all the things that you have accomplished over your last 3 years, and even beyond. If you want to talk a little bit about later middle school, that's fine too. And you can use this. And I think, again, when you have this kind of set aside, you can pull on this document anytime that you're going to be asked these things. Because believe me, you're at the very beginning of your senior year, but you're going to be, using this information and telling people all about yourself for the next several months. So it's nice to have it all set aside. I would say capitalization and spelling counts. It just means that you care. So if I look at a scholarship and I see that, in the application, things are misspelled and they're highlighted, by the program itself, that's showing me that this student didn't even take the time to correct the errors that were pointed out. And so you have to think of it from our perspective. As I mentioned, this scholarship could be worth $200,000. So if you can't take the time to capitalize and the time to check spelling errors that are already highlighted for you, then perhaps you're not the right person for the scholarship. So don't let something silly like that count you out. I would say print it if you can and read it out loud before you submit. It helps you hear errors that sometimes you don't always see. I've been doing this for many, many years. I have PowerPoints. I have mistakes and I don't realize them until I'm reading them out loud in front of a whole group of people that I've made that mistake. So it's always good to read it out loud. It helps you see things that when you're reading, you might just skip right over. So we don't have any uploaded documents for this scholarship, but I know a lot of others do. Make sure that those uploaded documents are correct. So if you have to upload an essay or anything like that, if you're uploading your own transcripts for another scholarship. I had a valedictorian miss out on a scholarship once because the student uploaded the wrong document, and it was terrible. They couldn't believe it, but they didn't take the time to double check. So always double check. I would say find a reviewer. They catch things you might miss. Again, when you're reading over stuff that you have written, your brain fixes it in your mind. So sometimes if you have a friend or someone else look through it, they'll point out little typos and, different little things that will pop up that you don't even realize. Take your time. So don't wait until the last minute. Computers have glitches. So again, this has been open for a very long time. So please don't wait to complete this application on the 15th. And then, if I get a frantic email, it's 5:10 and I tried to submit, but it wouldn't, there's nothing I can do. So the deadline is 5 o'clock. Don't let a computer issue ruin your day. And these are just some general essay tips that I have that I share with students throughout the year. I think that these are just nice to have in your back pocket. If you haven't had any, if you haven't had any classes on how to do either a college essay or a scholarship essay. So number one, read the instructions. So again, it seems easy, but if they're asking for essay limits, if they're asking you to type it in a certain font, asking for a number of pages or whatever, make sure that you're following the instructions. Make sure that you answer the questions asked. So not so much for this scholarship, but for our other scholarship program, I see a lot of times where people have a really great scholarship essay for something else, and so they just stick it in. And it's a great essay, but it doesn't answer any of the questions that we've asked. And so that will actually not be scored as high, because even though you're showing us that you can write, you're not answering the specific questions that we've asked. So make sure that if you're going to be reusing another essay, that you're tweaking it so that the reviewers feel as if you're talking to them and that you're not just cutting and pasting something from something else. Again, plan in advance, write all these things down, write accomplishments that you're proud of that you can weave in, write your career goals, or why you want to attend college. What's it going to, what is your end goal? I would say write in a plain style. You don't have to throw in a lot of huge words. In particular, if you don't know what some of the words mean, sometimes I've read essays that become so jumbled because the students are really trying to use what I call 25-cent words that the meaning is lost. And at the end of the day, we want to get to know you. We want to get a slice into your personality, your goals. And if it's convoluted and has too many big words that don't really make sense, sometimes that's lost. So if you're uploading something, again, it's about formatting. It's about the way it looks. Make sure that it flows and that it makes a nice first impression. Make it personal, make it passionate. Again, we're trying to get to know you, and tell us why you want to do the things that you do. So if, you know, these are just some examples that I've seen. You know, if you want to be a biologist, well, explain why. Give us that background. What brought you to that? Use very specific statements. Again, you know, writing like education is the key to success. I mean, that's great. We know that, but you know, it's more meaningful to me as a reader or a reviewer. You know, how has education impacted your life? What are some challenges, or what are some rewards that you've gotten from education? How can you make it more personal? And then 6, find an editor. So again, you know, find someone that can read through it and help you along the way. Either family member, friend, mentor, teacher, guidance, you know, whoever you might have in your world that could assist you. And then finally, you know, read it out loud to yourself so that you can hear how it flows and then make any last minute tweaks. So again, that's just kind of my 2 cents on scholarship essays in general, in particular, moving forward when you're applying to different schools and other scholarships and whatnot. And so that's all I have. If there's any last minute questions, you can certainly put them in the chat. Otherwise, this video, as well as these slides, are going to be put on our website tomorrow. I will also email them out to everyone that signed up for this Zoom. And then again, you have my contact information, so I can certainly help you navigate any questions that come up throughout the application process.
We have one question in the chat. Can you just verify that all portions of the application are due at the same time?
Absolutely. Yep. The entire application. So once you submit on the 15th, you will be all done.
That's the only question we had.
Okay, perfect. Well, I thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And please don't hesitate to reach out again if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you so much. And thank you, Miranda, for helping me with the Q&A.